Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes. Feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotions because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is. That reached 100 million people, I tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These
Well, hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. My husband just came home, so if you hear the beagle howling and all hell breaking loose, that is what is going on. Let me check my sound levels. I think everything is good. Yes, everything is good. And hello there, Assassin Panda 1, question mark. I'm always so curious about that one, question mark. Okay, this is probably not going to be a particularly long stream, but I have to thank some of my obsessed stans for coming up with this topic because it's actually a very interesting one to me. And I think sometimes people are surprised at how much introspection I actually do like to do. And I tend to think that's more a reflection on critics who think that if they confront you with something that you might have been wrong about, that you'll run from it. Where meanwhile, I like to figure out if I'm being consistent. Consistency is very, very important to me. And I forgot to take one of my medications. So, before we get started, I hope you guys are, and I don't like the way so much of my head is being cut off. Off with her head! I think some LNC members have positioned my camera. I'll fix that for next one. It needs to be framed a little better. It's really, I want to slump. Can I push my chair down? It's really bugging me. It's my OCD. But before we get into the meat of it, if you're enjoying this daily content, this is a function of me being unemployed. So I can do more content, and I've been getting more and more patrons. And this keeps up, then perhaps I'll be looking for a part-time job and doing this on the daily. which would be nice. And I could address a whole lot more things, and I've already got a lot of things already on my plate to address. So let me do my brief promo. I'm getting better at it. This is my most uncomfortable part, is I don't like doing self-promo, but that's not what I'm looking for. It's this along the bottom. If you do enjoy this, please consider becoming a patron. Several of you have done so in the past few days, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am. And with the extra time I have, I am going to work on trying to come up with some more patron-only content. And I am intending, but the best laid plans, I'm intending tonight, I'm recording a few more chapters regarding Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 1972. I have gotten a little behind in that, and I'm very eager to start the next book. And I think the next book I decided was going to be Radicals for Capitalism, because it has a lot to do, again, with the 1970s and the birth of the Libertarian Party. So there it is on the bottom for you. We believe in free markets and free market support, so if you can, I would truly appreciate it. But now on to the commentary. Let me remove that because that's distracting. So, what prompted this episode? Well, there's some sad people in the world who are bored, apparently, and also unemployed, who have, well, it's one. Why do I say people? There's a sad person who's decided to email bomb the LNC each day. And I don't think they realize that doing that has the exact opposite effect. However, with just obsessively butthurt that I wasn't removed, which I can't imagine being that obsessed. You know, there's a lot of people in this world. I don't want to say a lot. There's a, you know, as an adult, we all have a certain number of people we don't particularly care for. But I can't imagine being so obsessed that you're like, you know, it's like, dude, you know, maybe you need to see a doctor, because that's just weird. That is like Stan weird. But you do you, boo-boo. If that gets your rocks off, I don't know what to tell you, but you're giving me some great content. And first of all, you got something wrong. You decided to write and tattle to John Phillips, which he could watch my broadcast, that I was going to throw away the gift he gave me. Please get it right. If you're going to tattle on me, I did not say I was going to throw it away. I said I was going to burn it. It's made of wood. And most people understand why, considering someone that gave you such a wonderful gift and then 2 weeks later stabbed you in the back. But please, if you're going to quote me, at least quote me correctly. But, Elastic Draft thinks the email bomber is Carol Moore. I don't think so. There's certain topics that Carol likes to talk about, my tits being one of them, and my tits have not come up once. So I don't think it's Carol. It's someone, though, very, very, very hurt in the butt, which I just can't imagine being that, like, obsessed over something. But they keep obsessively quoting things that I said during the issue with Arvin Vohra. And I found them very interesting, because I did step back, because I don't care who the source is. If someone brings me up something where they go, you were inconsistent, I like to step back and go, did I grow? Did I change my mind? Am I inconsistent, or are the two circumstances substantively different? And I haven't really made up my mind on this one, though I'm coming on the side of the two circumstances are substantively different, and I overreacted. So I think I was wrong up to a point. And the two circumstances are substantively different. Now, I'm also suffering a bit from, I don't remember everything. Some of these quotes that this, I'm assuming it's a dude, maybe it's a chick, I don't know. We'll just say dude. Dude can be multi-gender. Some of the things that this person is unearthing, I don't even remember. And I'm like, wow, I said that? That was pretty eloquent. Go me. But I'd like to go over what happened with Arvin. And a lot of radicals disagreed with me on my decision with Arvin. But first, let me point out the biggest substantive difference. I was a regional representative. My region had an opinion, and it was my obligation as the regional representative to follow the will of my region. People forget that. People forget that because they're very used to me now being so independently minded on the LNC that they forget how frustrated they used to get with me 2016 to 2018 because I did not express a lot of my own views. I expressed my region's views, and that was my job. Contrary to the two regional representatives that had to resign this time, who were not following the will of their region. Now, what if my region wanted me to do something absolutely unethical? Would I do it? No. So, if I absolutely believed it was utterly wrong to suspend him, I wouldn't have supported it. I would have abstained. I never would go against the will of my region, but I wouldn't actively vote for something if I thought it was immoral. So obviously, I did not disagree with my region, but the fact is my region wanted this. So there's the first substantive difference. The second substantive difference, Arvin was given complete due process. No one in a million years would have ever have considered denying him due process. We even asked him if he wanted a formal trial, and he declined. He declined a formal trial, just wanted an LNC meeting. Nowhere would have ever occurred to us to do this by email ballot. Second substantive difference. Third substantive difference. Arvin has always been controversial. Why did this come up then? It wasn't simply that he was controversial, like I'm controversial. It was because of, if I remember, it was 2 or 3 statements he made that not just were controversial or insulting or inflammatory, but that could arguably, people will argue otherwise, go against our principles. That is the difference. Now, what statement did he say that caused me to take that position? Well, there was 2 of them. One, he was joking about shooting up school boards after a school board shooting. That is making light of violence, which I don't think the party should ever be seen as doing. So that was number 1. And I still think that was completely inappropriate. However, it was on his personal page. So I'm stepping back and thinking about that. But it wasn't merely a bad joke. It was a bad joke in the midst of a shooting, about a shooting. And that was pretty bad. It showed tremendous lack of judgment. But the second thing, for me at least, was his statement that he's an educator now. Remember this as the context. He's an educator. He said, when asked if he, as a 40, I think maybe 40, late 30s, early 40-year-old man, would have sex with a 14-year-old. And he said, probably not. Now, I know some people will have absolutely no problem with that statement. I found it deeply, deeply disturbing and predatory. And those were the 2 reasons. It wasn't that he cussed. It wasn't that he was inflammatory. It wasn't that he pushed people's buttons, at least for me. It was the making light of violence and the borderline predatory attitude as an educator towards children. But did I perhaps overreact? Maybe. It's hard to go back to that time period. But those are completely different things. Oh, the third thing. Oh, shit. I remember the third thing now. And this was the thing that pushed me over the edge, which people forget about. And I have not done this. In fact, I went out of my way not to do this. Arvin was not happy, like I'm not happy, with the messaging of the National Party. But what he did, he told us this. He said, I don't like what you guys are doing, so I'm going to go out in public and say a bunch of things in an attempt to force you into following my kind of messaging. He openly said this to the LNC. That is putting people into positions of discussions against their consent. And that is wrong. You cannot do that. I, on the other hand, have said, I don't like your messaging, so I'm going to go roll my own. You can follow or not. I'm not going to force you into it. You do you, boo-boo. It was that third point of him saying the LNC's not messaging the way I want, so I'm going to force you to. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because I don't think that's right. I don't believe in non-consensually forcing people into discussions on things that they don't want to, and then making them as inflammatory as maybe I wouldn't have sex with a 14-year-old, okay? So there's the substantive differences. And I'm going to give a fourth substantive difference, though this did not have an impact on my vote, but it did have an impact on my attitude. Because my stand today quoted me as saying something to the effect of, even if Arvin thinks he's right, the fact that he's causing such disruption in the party, he should just resign for the good of the party. They're like making these equivalent. Okay, let me tell you the difference. I got 900 emails in support. Arvin got maybe 5, and we got hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and emails in opposition. The membership as a whole was not happy. And that is not the case here. So, but if I were in that situation now, having been through what I've been through, would I be a little bit more sympathetic, particularly to the fact that he did this on his personal page? Probably. I probably was a bit too harsh on that. So, there was some interesting introspection there. But if the entirety of the party was against me, the way they were against Arvin, yeah, I wouldn't be in this position. I wouldn't stay in it. Why would I want to stay in a position representing people who didn't want me to? The people who elected me still want me to represent them. A lot of the people who elected Arvin didn't want him anymore. And that is their prerogative. Hogarth was against my vote on the Vohra situation. Isn't that funny? And so was Nick. I wonder if Nick's going to examine his past. Or is Nick merely agenda-driven because Arvin was a good friend of his and I'm not? I think that's pretty obvious. So, it's hard to mind the subjunctive, a phrase I use that a lot of people seem to like. I don't know if I had the experience I had now, how I would have done then. But one thing I will tell you, I never would have voted no because my region didn't want that. But there's a possibility with the point of view I have now, I might have abstained. That's functionally a no, but it's an ethical not going against the will of your region. But my region wasn't a strong yes. My region was a yes, but not super, like, they weren't all yes. Like, there were no states. And there were states that also said they didn't have an opinion. So, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I can tell you I'd be a lot more cautious now, particularly with what people say on their personal page. There also wasn't the situation that Arvin wasn't whistleblowing something, and it was really, and Arvin was given a shit ton of talks to beforehand. He knew this was coming multiple times. It wasn't out of the blue, for one thing. But here is a mistake I made. I shouldn't have supported suspension out of the block. I should have supported censure. There, I was wrong. On that, yeah. And Larry said if he said it in MeWe, about 6 people read it. Not when it's screenshotted and posted on Facebook. I wasn't on MeWe. So, on one thing, I was definitely wrong. I should have supported censure first. But I was also fairly new to the LNC and Robert's rules at that time, so I don't even know if I understood that fully. I've learned a lot since then about organizational discipline and things like that. So that in hindsight, yeah. But here's something interesting I learned today. Besides the fact that I've been pretty much threatened to keep my mouth shut about the corruption because it hasn't been proven. It's been proven to me. And that's my opinion. Also learned today that I was being set up for this. One of the LNC members, 2 days before the suspension motion, when I was in the midst of all of getting close to the truth, called me, and I was I didn't understand the phone call. I thought it was a friendly phone call. It was a warning phone call that I was being set up, and they felt bad about it and were trying to warn me, and I didn't take the hint. That makes it even worse. And that person who warned me then went to support it. And in all the backroom discussions, one reason they supported it, I tried to warn you, like they're more upset that I didn't listen to them. Like their pride is hurt. Well, dude, I don't take hints a lot. Don't beat around the bush. When you're trying to tell me a bunch of people are trying to set me up for something, just say it. Don't be all subtle about it. I'm not the queen of subtlety. But yeah, an LNC member's admitting I was set up. That they wanted to suspend me and that certain people were posting certain things to try to get me to respond a certain way to set me up. Yeah, that was said to me. Nice LNC we have here, isn't it? I think it's pretty shitty. So, but with Arvin, if I got to speak with him, I would tell him I was wrong not to support censure first. He ended up with the censure. But in that, I was definitely wrong. But in the rest of it, it's hard to get to the rest of it because if you went to censure first, you wouldn't get to the rest of it. But let's just put that aside for a second. I did what my region asked me to do, and I was a regional representative. And regionals need to do what the region asked them to do or step down. Because you were elected to represent your region. And from the calls I got from regional members, not just, the state chairs and stuff, the membership of my region, they were just in an uproar. So, right, wrong, or indifferent. So I guess the bottom line, wrong not to go straight to suspension and not to support censure. Definitely I was wrong there. And I owe Arvin an apology for that. 2, I might have overreacted. And I'll tell you right off the bat, kids and animals are my weak points. Like, I lose my shit if I think children are being abused or animals are being abused. And he touched one of my hot buttons with an educator saying, perhaps I would not have sex with a 14-year-old. If I'm ever going to be statist on anything, it will be in protecting children and protecting animals. I know my weak points. And joking about violence to me is gross. Like, you can't do that. Particularly, and it wasn't just the joke. It was in the context of his open hostility towards public schools. You know, sometimes people joke, but they're not joking. Do you know what I mean? Like, they use a joke as a way to say something they really mean and then gaslight you a bit to say, oh, I was just joking. I'm sorry. That shooting up school boards when all you do is rail against public schools, I'm sorry. That has a little bit of a ring of truth to it. Okay? That's my opinion. You could agree or disagree, but I'm just being absolutely forthright here with you guys on how I saw things at the time. So, substantively different. I'm sorry, my Stan. Though, thank you for the topic. I'm going to go over to comments now and interact with some of them, and maybe I'll have some more insights. So let me pull up comments here. Oh, and by the way, a bylaw that I supported after the Arvin thing, which got shot down in committee, was the right of recall. I think delegates should have the right of recall. I don't think the LNC should have this vast power to remove an LNC member. We just saw how it was abused. That suspension provision was supposed to be for malfeasance, like you're the treasurer and you stole from the party, or you punched an LNC member in the face in a meeting. It wasn't supposed to be because they don't like the way you talk in an email list. That is such an abuse of power, abuse of power for libertarians and without due process. Get out of here. It was supposed to be for gross malfeasance, and I would like to see the bylaw change to that, and I would like to see there to be a right of recall on the amount of members. If members aren't happy with an LNC member, they should be able to remove them. Just like with the regions. The regions get removed by the regions, and the LNC can't remove a regional. Only the region can. I don't think the rest of the LNC should get to remove an officer. Only the delegates can. So let's put a right of recall into the bylaws. I mean, is that unreasonable to anybody here? Wouldn't you like the right to recall? When Nick was going off the rails and attacking other libertarians, wouldn't you have loved to have had the right to recall? Okay, so let's continue here. Hello, Sean and Matt Kirby. Hey, Matt, you're my freaking hero for that public comment, boy. I wish I was there for that. But I had to hang up because of bad connection, but nailed it. And Austin, I'm glad you liked my Pork Fest video. I was definitely in rare form that day because I was mad. And Diet Dew is my jam too, Joe Bowers. Okay, let's see. Here. Ha! Joe Bowers says, the tit towel, yes. And Kenny, yeah, LPRC, I thought, what? Now, but let me tell you something, Kenny. You see the difference between the LPRC of today? And listen, Mark Montoni's my friend, but I'm absolutely ashamed of him for defending what Susan and Richard did. It's a blind spot for him. I know Susan's his friend, but a friend will tell a friend when they're wrong. But you might remember, Kenny, I got a lot of shit from the LPRC, even though it's what my region wanted. A lot of people, including Susan and Mark, rode my ass. But now everyone's zip about what Susan's doing to me? Hypocrisy much? The Arvin thing, I think reasonable people could disagree. Due process, no libertarian can disagree on due process. And Susan voted to deny me due process. Sorry, that's not non-radical. That's anti-radical. That's anti-libertarian. Elastic Giraffe. He asked, are regional reps more like delegated mouthpieces for their regions, or are they elected to exercise their own judgment? There is difference of opinion on that, but the regional agreements say they're to represent their regions. Otherwise, they'd just be at-larges. Why do you need them divided by region if they're not going to represent the region? They could just be an at-large. Now, if a regional wanted to just exercise their own judgment, they can negotiate that into the regional agreement. So the majority view, and I know I view my regional that way, is that they're to represent their regions. Otherwise, there's no purpose for it. Just have at-large. Just have 12 at-larges instead of 8 regionals and 4 at-larges. Assassin Panda, was there a point behind the school shooting joke? I don't think he ever gave a point. I don't recall, though. Like, I don't know if he had some strategy behind it. It was certainly in very, very bad taste. Yeah, here's a good point. I'm going to add this to the broadcast. Does Vohra believe all violence against state actors is defensive and therefore justifiable, even if not prudent? His rhetoric seemed to lead in that direction. Thank you. You just brought something else into focus that was part of the whole deliberations. Yes, he certainly seemed to be implying that we should be defending violence against the state. And that's a no-go in the LP. Now, I want to be very clear here because a lot of people get really upset about this or don't understand the nuance. Is violence against the state ever justified? Yes. Can we, as Libertarian Party members who have signed the pledge, advocate for that? No. Because that's the purpose of our party, is to avoid that. The party's philosophy is that as long as there is a political solution, you always take the non-violent route and that violence is immoral. If anyone in this party should believe that the only route is violence, they need to leave the party. Because our position is there's still hope. And the non-aggression principle also implies the minimization of aggression principle. Just like Walter Block said in his evictionism, where he was defending removing the fetus, but he said in the gentlest way possible. Same thing with removal of the state. Should be in the gentlest way possible. Now, I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in any violence for me personally. But unless we're going to say the Revolutionary War was unjustified, or any revolution is unjustified, then we have to say there are theoretical circumstances where violence against the state is justified. But we can't be advocating that now as party members, because then there's no point to the party. Once violence is on the table, political solutions, peaceful solutions are off the table. And Arvin was very much leaning towards inciting that kind of activity. And we can't have that. We are under existential threat from the government, who are, you know, now we're on a terrorist watch list. You cannot have an officer of the party even hint towards that. I forgot about that element. And that was a lot of what drove my state chairs. Thank you for bringing that to mind. Okay? Yeah, Elastic Giraffe. It is an Aspie thing. We don't pick up on hints. If that other LNC member wanted to tell me I was being set up and I should just like take a week off or something, he should have just told me that. And then get all butthurt because I didn't follow your advice, like I didn't respect you or something. Dude, I didn't understand that's what you were saying to me. But it kind of is pretty sinister now that you told me that's what you were trying to say to me, meaning you now supported a removal that you knew I was being set up for? What does that make you? frickin' Game of Thrones nonsense. JJ says recall would depend on the method. It's not, we have, let me explain. I could probably find, I'm not going to do it right now, my old proposal. I remember kind of what it was. We kind of have that now, but not for officers. For instance, if the LNC makes a decision that the delegates don't like, they can appeal that decision. They can recall that decision. And it's a certain petition requirement of credentialed delegates at the last convention. So in order to appeal a decision of the LNC to our judicial committee, they have to get 10% of the registered delegates at the last convention. So why couldn't we recall an officer in that way? It could even be a very high bar. It could be the number of signatures that that officer won by, like a percentage that they won by. Like if you won your election by 51%, then round it up to the nearest 55% of signatures of delegates can remove you. To me, that seems very fair. It's a high bar, and the decision is not in the LNC, but it's possible. Okay, Larry asks, can you describe how caucuses function within the party and why do we even have them? I was thinking of doing a whole episode on this, so let me give you the short thing. A caucus is just basically, excuse me, a special interest group within the party. So they have a certain goal or common interests. Like there's the Hispanic caucus. They don't really have an ideological goal. They're there to promote outreach to the Hispanic community. But then you might have like, there's the ranked choice voting caucus. So they're there to promote ranked choice voting within the party. So it's just basically subgroups within the party. Because if you think of the party itself as like a caucus within the bigger political landscape of the United States. So you got all of the body politic, and then you got the parties, which are kind of like caucuses. And then within the parties, there's sub-caucuses. That's kind of how I look at it. They're not officially recognized by the party at all. They're completely independent. The more serious ones have their own bylaws, their own officers. They're set up as political action committees. So hopefully that answered your question. I know I used to be really confused about that when I first got into the party. Like, what's caucus? What's that all about? And JJ says, you'd be letting the JC become a super LNC. I'm not saying the signatures would bump it to the JC. I'm saying the signatures would remove the officer, and then they would have a right to appeal. It wouldn't put it to the JC automatically. The JC would remain an appellate body. But I do think members should have a direct right to recall. We support that for the government. Why don't we support that in our own? We also support term limits in the government too. Well, some of us do. Okay. All right. I do not, if I missed anyone's question, will you bump it while we're going through here? And you notice my cough is almost gone, but I still have to take my medicine, which of course is Diet Dew. You do not want to know how many of these I drink a day. I mean, I think you could probably get a little bit of idea just looking at the flotsam and jetsam I have around here. I drink, I'm surprised I'm not. What is that color that's in here? Yellow number 9 or something like that? No, it's yellow number 5. I'm surprised my skin is not glowing. Yellow number 5. So Larry asks, when they say a caucus took over a state, what does that mean? It means that caucus members are now the majority on the board. But to me, that's a real reductionist view, because even within a caucus, the members don't walk lockstep. For instance, Mises Caucus people are the majority in Colorado, and if you think we're walking in lockstep, you've got another thing coming. They're all really, really mad at my husband Wayne right now for issuing an apology letter for an ill-advised tweet. I think they want to censure him. They have the right to do it, but if they think just because a caucus has taken over a state that things walk in lockstep, that is not in fact the case. Because people are people, and libertarians are a special kind of people. And what's the virtue of 5 at-large reps as opposed to 1? I don't even know if I see a virtue in the at-large, to be honest with you. I would prefer to see smaller regions and more regionals. I like the direct representation better, because the at-large, let me tell you something about at-larges. For one thing, you want to guess their job duties? None. Show up at meetings. That's it. They don't have to do anything else. They have no duties. It's insane to me. There's not a job description at all. And they feel beholden to no one because they're beholden to everybody. To me, I would like to see more regionals and have the officers be the only ones that are expected not to be direct representatives, because they're in a position of greater trust and responsibility. The tweet, it had to do with January 6th, saying it was something to the effect of, it was very, and I'd like to explain, it was talking about FBI involvement in January 6th, which is fine, but there wasn't a libertarian tie-in to it. All it did was, it could have been just as easily tweeted by a Republican. And we here in Colorado have taken great pains to separate ourselves out from the Trumpians. And that tweet kind of really made us look very Trumpian. It wasn't what it said, it's what it didn't say. It didn't give a libertarian angle. It just seemed like a Trump fan would have made it. So it was something like the only thing wrong with January 6th was FBI involvement or something like that. I don't recall the exact thing, but the objection to it was, A, there was violence that happened, and we got to be very careful when we're talking about violent situations that we make it clear that while we might agree with some things, we always disagree with the violence. With the National Party fucked up with the BLM things, where we agree that police brutality is bad. We never condemned BLM violence, and that is absolutely wrong, and the National Party should apologize for that. That is what, excuse me, coughing, tried to hold it in. So yeah, that is what that tweet was about. And it also, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. That one tweet was being used to set Colorado up for like a New Hampshire situation. We all have to be really careful right now. And people can disagree with him. He was elected to be chair. That's his judgment. And they have every right to censure him if they like, and they have every right not to support him again. But the fact is, we need to let each other do each other's jobs. He was elected chair. The tweet was deleted by our communications director, not even at the instruction of the chair. But you want to know what? That's the communications director's job. You need to let him do his job. You can tell him you disagree, and if you think he really went over the line, you can censure him. But we need to stop doing each other's jobs and let people do the jobs that the delegates elected them to do. What's the virtue of officers being voting members? The officers ultimately are the fiduciaries of the party. That to me is the virtue of the officers being voting members. And I think the regionals are fiduciaries of their regions. I certainly felt that way when I was Region 1. I was there for the best interest of Region 1, not the best interest of the entire party. Hopefully the two would align, but they might not in some circumstances. And Ryan, yeah, I think you were upset with Wayne, and I get it, you know. And if you guys felt like you want to censor him, that's particularly your right. I was joking with Wayne the other day going, it might be good if you got censored because it would prove to people that we're not walking in lockstep. We're going to have disagreements, and that's good. That is absolutely good. But we need to have the communications meeting soon. That whole situation was unavoidable. I mean, not unavoidable, was inevitable without us having a strategy session. So I was actually going to work on that tonight, getting with Joshua to set up the communication strategy session. That kind of just put everyone in a real bad position. And yeah, and you know the opposition, right? You've seen what's coming against us, you know? We've got an affiliate now in Colorado tweeting, don't vote libertarian. Like, that's how anti-Mises and stuff they are and how freaked out they are. And you want to know why they're doing that? They want us to take action against them and then call us authoritarians. And to me, it's like, what, 10 people read that page? I don't care. Oh, okay, sorry, your last name. I'm a dummy then. I thought you were the Ryan on our board. What the fuck is his last name? I suck at names. Sorry. Well, then you can't censure him. Bad Ryan. The Ryan on our board, I think, is very upset with Wayne. And that's okay. That won't be the first time. And you'll be very upset with me, and I'll be very upset with you, I'm sure, before this term is done. And Kenny, I agree with you. I no longer will support someone who doesn't align with my values, even if they are competent in the job, because we see where that goes. I thought JBH was competent. Didn't align with my values, but I thought he was competent, and it turned out it wasn't either, actually. So one lesson, though, to tie in, because this kind of does have to do, Arvin, with controversial messaging and stuff like that. You have to tie it into an L value, because we're in such a polarized world right now that if we're not tying it into an L, we're spitting into the wind. We're not getting anywhere. So even with, like, say, a child labor tweet, people liked the tweet I did about it rather than the New Hampshire one, even though they both said legalize child labor, because I took it from the 2002 platform, which said why. Children have rights, blah, 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 legalize child labor type thing. It tied it into our philosophy, and we have to be very, very careful to do that. So, yeah. Especially in today's political climate. So I doubt I will have satisfied my stand, because I don't think they'll be satisfied with anything, you know, whatever. But hopefully they'll give me another topic for tomorrow. I can't wait to see his email I'm saying his, I don't know, it's a he. I can't wait to see their email of tomorrow morning. I wish I were that bored. I haven't been that bored since I was 6 years old. Yeah, Kenny Kelly had a good way to say the legalized child labor thing. Okay, guys, that will be it for today. I might be recording a couple other things tonight, maybe not live. I've got some content that I need to do that's more scripted and planned out. But I do hope you enjoy the content. Again, please consider becoming a patron. If you're not already and you enjoy the work that I do, it does help me stay afloat while I'm unemployed. And perhaps, again, this is the gateway to doing more and more libertarian work. Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough radical voices out there, consistently out there. You know, we've got Justin Amash saying we're not out here to educate or be activists. You want to know what I say to that? Well, you do you, boo-boo. See, here's the thing. Here's what's so funny about the difference between that wing of the party and my wing of the party. My wing can coexist with them just fine because they aren't harming me, or I don't think they are. But that wing has to shut up my wing. It's inevitable. That's just because they find us embarrassing. Me, I'm fine with Justin Amash being Justin Amash. He'll reach some people I can't. And it doesn't harm my goals at all. But me, the people on that wing have to view people like me as enemies. And that's the problem. We need to learn to coexist, but that's going to take some work on their part because I have no problem with them existing. But they find people like me embarrassing because it doesn't allow them to pretend like our views aren't what they actually are. That's the battle for the soul of the party. Yeah, and I agree, Kenny. I think Amash does want a party version of the Republican Liberty Caucus. He keeps going on and on about the rule of law, not realizing, dude, there's two words that will trigger libertarians in a heartbeat: rule and law. I know what you're saying, but can you stop using conservative buzzspeak, please? Can you start talking like a libertarian? Okay, guys, have a good night. Love you all, and see you soon, probably tomorrow. And where is my outro? Yes!
Gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business.